Well, let's explain, since you asked, what separation of church and state is. I, it means Thomas Jefferson started talking to a bunch of Baptists at a convention, and they said, you know what? We came to America. We do not want to pay a church tax. How many of you are grateful that you do not pay a church tax? Yeah? So a bunch of Baptists got together, started working with Thomas Jefferson, and they said, we want separation of church and state. We do not want the government to be involved in the church, and we do not want the government to establish a government church, right? So they said, we don't want to pay a church tax. And they got with Thomas Jefferson, and he wrote a letter to the Baptist Convention, and where we see the phrase, the first time being used, separation of church and state. So, now, we'll hear people say that separation of church and state means that the church is not allowed to be involved in anything that is involved as far as the government goes. That's actually not true. That's not true. It's actually quite the opposite. The government is not allowed to make a statewide church. They're not allowed to force us to be taxed for that church. And then separation of church and state, guess who it actually protects? The church. It keeps the government from coming into our church and telling us the things that we are allowed to do and not allowed to do. How many of you are grateful for that? Amen?